we're going to have a little discussion right now concerning the hero movies, the superhero movies that we both have come to love. And in particular, what is it that makes the MCU like this and the DCEU down there somewhere? Now, there are things about the DCEU that we love first and foremost. So this is in no way throwing shade on them. In particular, Christopher Nolan, and I think you agree with what he did with the Batman trilogy, as well as the Superman that he did independent before it was the whole BVS and everything, were really good. And I wonder if we should go as far back as the ones back in the day, like in the 90s, or should we just keep it as far as what's going on with now? How do you feel about that to begin?
I think it's good. It's been a while since the other ones, so I won't have much to say about the older ones. I had to re-review them, and I haven't in a while. So
okay,
yeah, I'll just be talking about the current ones.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking as far as the MCU goes, is for me, just to start things off, it seems to me like they gave the characters, each and every one of them, an arc. So you felt like these were people that you grew with over time. They started off being able to make their mistakes, able to not have all of their skills and powers honed down, but just being more like you and I, just kind of realizing what situation they were in, acting with the best of it. I guess in the case of Spider-Man, as he said, with great power comes great responsibility. So they're at the time in the beginning where that responsibility isn't exactly in order. So you're seeing them coming into their new abilities and their new attributes. And over the course of time, you see them gravitate into the heroes that are able to jump in front of a train or protect a baby that's in harm or save an innocent woman that might be either crossing the street or getting ready to get shot with a laser or something like that. And it added a bit of just familiarity with feeling like you knew the characters from the point of origin to all the way across the span of however many movies that it's been up until now. And it seemed like the DCEU doesn't really give its characters that same flair of you feeling like you understand where they came from, where they started, and the continuation of where they end up, being able to identify with how they grew, what they understood, what they learned, and how they were able to incorporate that into who they came to be. How do you feel about that to start off?
I agree with you. I think my impression of DCEU versus MCU, I think with the Marvel movies, there has been, I think, a great effort at weaving all these different plots together, even if all it takes is at the end of the movie when you're supposed to be leaving the theater, back when we could go to theaters, there's this little really quick clip of Thanos who shows up 5 movies down the road.
Right.
I think they did a very good job at weaving all those plot elements together, so that if you're watching them in the order that they came out, it is a sense of a continuation of a very, very large, one big story. I feel like with DC, I feel like they were almost like playing catch up with the whole universe concept. So the films, some of them are a little more independent of each other than the Marvel ones. And yeah, it's interesting because there are several of the DC films that I really enjoyed. I mean, namely Wonder Woman. I thought that was fine, and I know that it ended up tying into films down the road like Justice League. So I think the elements are there for them to make some very good things. It's just they didn't come together in the same way. some of the themes that you see, at least for some of the individual characters, like what you mentioned, like with Spider-Man, you can see him, especially in Tom Holland's portrayal, you can see him progressing, getting into this superhero thing. Definitely. And also grappling with what does it mean to my family and friends for me to also be this superhero that also ends up putting them at risk.
Exactly.
I think they did an even better job at showing what that would really be like, even with the Andrew Garfield ones, or the Tobey ones.
Right.
So I appreciated that. Just the Spider-Man's growth as a character, that was very well on display in especially the most recent Spider-Man movies. So I think that was done very well, and I don't see the same kind of focus in the DC films. And then also with the DC films, I don't think a superhero movie needs to be happy all the time, but I feel like for some of it, at least the earlier DC movies, I think they went in the other direction a little too far, too fast, with being like dreary and sad. So I think there was less to enjoy with some of the DC movies. I mean, with Dark Knight, I don't think it mattered because I think that was a very good tone change.
Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, the earlier Batman movies, I think, were a little campy.
Right.
Which worked, but I think the darker direction worked very well for the Christopher Nolan ones.
Yeah.
But then you come up with Marvel, and they have like a string of movies that I think are really written well and have a strong humor element all the way throughout. And you have movie after movie after movie where you spend a lot of time laughing.
Right.
And it's fun.
Right.
And then contrast that against some things that are darker. And I think for whatever reason, it didn't work that well. But I mean, again, dark isn't bad, because I think of the Joker movie, which comic book movie, maybe it's not tied in to the plot lines, but that's not a happy movie. But it worked for me.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And also adding on to what you said, the DCEU doesn't have its own, say for example, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
It's a superhero movie, but it's fun. It is possible to root for these guys, see them kicking butt and taking names and the whole nine, and it not having to be so dreary and so it's like the weight of the world hanging over every other movie in the DCEU. And sometimes it can be as simple as sometimes the heroes going into even like characters of what you're used to when it comes to saving the world and fighting bad guys and all. And that's what I really appreciated with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And like you said, it is good that they did go into the direction that they did with Wonder Woman, where before it turned into a light show at the end and everything, it was good to see scenes where it was daylight, scenes where you went into the city, scenes where you saw the flashbacks of how she became who she was, and times that you could laugh with it, and times that you could feel relaxed and kind of let your guard down and not think that everything was, like I said before, the weight of the world is on your shoulders. I want to enjoy this and going to have a great time, but I also know that there's this big dark battle at the end where someone's not going to make it, and I'm holding my breath and all. Sometimes it is more relatable to have a situation almost like Civil War, where you knew both factions were going to be going head to head and they were at odds. They explained the reason that they were coming from the way that they were, as far as should they be able to work privately and not have to worry about checking in with the government, or should they more basically have almost trackers on them so that they have to stop what they're doing, ask if they can be able to step in before they actually do so. So when they have that battle, It's not an issue of who's going to die, who's going to have their powers drained or whatever. It's good to just see Spider-Man go against Iron Man. You know what I mean? Not against Iron Man, but see Spider-Man and Iron Man team up and go against Captain America and Black Widow. And in that case, it didn't have to do with, you know, what's going to happen at the end of this. It's just, let's have a good time. It's almost like we used to do when we were young with playing with our toys, and I want to see what happens when this person matches up against this person. And we weren't worried about the world ending or what's going to happen as a result of this. It's just, let's have a good time. Let's eat some popcorn. Let's see what this all turns into. So I totally agree with, it didn't have to be so depressing. And I think now that's what they're trying to clean up, and that's what they're trying to move towards. But at the expense of, that's the way that you started. And so now, even with that, we see the change between things being so dreary to now you're purposefully trying to add more jokes, even how you did with Batman versus Superman and with the Suicide Squad, where we found out that you added more jokes and more, you know, comedic, you know, moments in just to appease the audience, when that should have been that way all along. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and even when I say I like moments of levity in these films, what's something I am appreciating about both the Marvel movies and the DC movies is there's actually a maturity in these subjects that you could overlook because it's a comic book movie, okay. But I remember noticing, especially like in Civil War, the whole conflict about, is it okay for us as superheroes to be intervening in all these things? Right. And that's the reason why you had the two camps split apart, because there's this political accord that they're not in agreement with. And it has to do with their activities. What do they have? What effect do these activities have, these superhero escapades have on regular people?
Right.
I think a Marvel movie is the first time that I noticed that the superheroes fighting the bad guys in some huge city and everything is falling apart, that they actually addressed that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not all this mayhem happened and then, okay, well, now we got the next movie. No,
right.
at whatever movie that was in, that might have been the first Avengers. Yeah, if after Avengers, Avengers 2, they're still talking about the city that was tore up.
Exactly.
Because of
the
exploits of the superheroes trying to save Earth. They actually talked about that. I appreciated in Batman versus Superman, you know, Superman grappling with this issue of, should I kill somebody or shouldn't I? Because I'm a good guy, but I had to kill this person. And he's actually dealing with that. The dude dies and he's the bad guy, so he's supposed to die, but he's wrestling with that. It's a moral issue for Superman, which those did happen. I said I didn't want to talk about the old movies, but those did happen in the older movies. Right. I appreciated that was pretty much front and center in this one, that it is fun entertainment. It can be mindless if you want it to be, but it adds, I think, a bit of realism in that. Fine, superheroes are not real, but if you're gonna go put them in this city, have everything fall apart, and then next movie, almost like next TV episode, no one cares. Yeah, that's kind of weird. And they didn't let that weirdness happen. They actually allowed the characters to have an effect on their environment and still be talking about it in the next thing. Right. So that was really, really good. I really appreciated how both Marvel and DC have taken maybe different approaches to addressing what these things mean and what their effect might have next go round.
Yes, the weight of the consequences, you know? It should be some weight to you blowing up an entire city. Yes. You've made the civilians and you've made the places that you're at real things in the story. It's a part of it. So there's no way that you can act like what happened in the first film or the third film didn't have any effect in the fourth and so on. And for both sides, they used to do that and play around with that all the time, where it was like a reset button that was hit every time that everything was done. And I like how, you know, with Civil War, how they had those accords where we're going to have to we're going to have to basically be made to be put to blame when we do these things, because there's a lot of innocent people who are caught up in this, who, because Hulk is smashing from building to building, has someone in it being crushed, being killed. And so it was really good, like you said, to take that realistic approach. While these people have powers and while they have these capabilities, they still do have things that happen when they have these great wars and these great battles. And we, the normal everyday citizens, are at the results of those actions. So one thing, just like we're saying with Civil War, that I appreciated was, when it comes to the DCEU, you don't usually have a chance of choosing sides on anything. Because you're going with the good guys, you're already on that side. And even if you agree about what the villain is saying or what his thoughts are or why he wants to do what he wants to do, you still know that he's the villain. But Civil War made it so that both sides are the good guys. We have a villain, sure, and that's going to come into play. But before that, which side are you on as far as what's going to be coming down the pipeline with what we're being held accountable for? And the fact that you had the initiative to take that approach and to add into your script something that bold, now you have the audience split into three sides. Because I can either go on Captain America's side, which I kind of did. I don't know how you felt about it. Or you have Iron Man's side. But we both then have to gel back together because there's a bigger threat. So when you do that with a movie, you add 2 and 3 layers to what was already going to be an enjoyable time. So I'm wondering what in the future the DCEU can do. Almost like a way that I like how they did Shazam, and how they almost brought back that nostalgia of a kid being confronted with these powers and still wanting to be a kid. In this case, he's in a man's body, but he's still a child. And I like the way that it was him and his best friend, and how they were trying to deal with what was going on with him, and then trying to deal with the baddies. And the first couple of times he got beat up and beat down just like he normally would, and then had to figure out how to look within himself to overcome and to be the victor at the end. And so they do need to come up with some more ways like that. I think with Black Adam, what is it that that The Rock is supposed to be doing coming up? Have you heard of that one?
No, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, it's supposed to be something that they had talked to The Rock about doing a long time ago, and they've just finally started to be able to get it going. But I think that there's like a movie poster or something like that already out, but they don't have like a trailer yet. So I'm wondering if they started shooting or whatever. But The Rock is another great personality that you could add to the DCEU to make it kind of raise up a little bit, because they need something to even kind of balance things out a bit more. Like I said, the MCU has a large lead, and probably also now they're going into is it phase 3 or phase 4?
Right, one of those phases. That might be 4.
Exactly, and now they're talking about bringing in Shane. I think it's like the martial arts side, and they're going to be doing something again with like the wizardry and all of that. So I'm wondering how once again the DCEU will be able to hold up. So it's going to be really interesting in the upcoming months and everything. I'm sure we'll keep our ears glued to the scene and what's going to be coming down the pipe. What did you think about the new Wonder Woman trailer that has come out recently, or just the fact of what is it, like Wonder Woman 85? I think it's supposed to be.
I haven't seen that yet, so
okay.
That's one more thing that I have to put on my list of things to see. But actually, if we can go back to Civil War for a minute, you mentioned they got this head-to-head thing between Captain America, Iron Man,
Right.
and they got this looming threat. So that was one of the reasons that I didn't like Civil War as much, because I knew they're the good guys. There's going to be a bad guy. They're going to get back together. So I didn't care that much about which side it is.
Okay.
Yeah, because my thinking, it's a comic book movie.
Right.
There has to be one enemy. And
what
by the end of this movie, they're going to put enough of their differences down to fight it. That's what I assumed they were going to do. So most of the movie, in the beginning, I was waiting for them to get to it. But what I appreciate about that is that they didn't try to indulge me in my impatience. they let it develop, and their philosophical differences, their political differences, seemed genuine to me, even while I was waiting for, like, hurry up, you got a bigger threat. Put, stop fighting each other. Even with that, I do like the way it was handled, that they didn't drop it. It didn't seem like conflict for the sake of another conflict.
Right.
So even for a part of the plot that didn't really resonate with me that much, I think it was put together well enough that it wasn't really that much of a distraction. And then when they finally did get together, I was like, go guys, yes, this is what I've been waiting for.
Yes, definitely. And
they stuck it out to the end of the film too, that even at the end, everyone wasn't, kumbaya forever. Not really. Which they stuck with it. So okay, very good. But that was a very good direction for this kind of thing to go, where there usually is, for most movies, one good versus one evil. I applaud them for going somewhere besides that, which everybody has been doing. So even if I didn't like it that much, it was still a good thing to try, and it actually did work out.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it definitely did. I like I said, I remember, I think on Facebook, me posting Captain America's picture and saying, like, I'm Team Cap or whatever it is. So it was definitely polarizing. And another thing to add to it is, we can look at it this way when it comes to the MCU. To break it down, you've got your Iron Man films, where you've also got a star in Hollywood who has kind of fallen, and his star has fallen, and they give him the chance to rise again. And that's exactly what Robert Downey Jr. was going through at the time that they chose him to play Tony Stark's. So you have that movie where he's coming into who he is and having Iron Man kind of be the one to lead things off. Then you have Thor, where it's almost like another world, another realm. You have the Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's almost like a Star Wars, kind of like a space epic. You have the Incredible Hulk, which we all know and love. Then you have Civil War, and you have your Infinity Wars and the whole thing. You also have Captain America, and how he started from being this puny guy and having to go through what he did to become who he was. And so then with Winter Soldier, it goes into almost like an espionage kind of spies and intel, and really getting to explore what he was made of outside of his powers. What else was there? Him being able to sneak onto a boat and detect the person of interest, and seeing how everything happened with how, I guess, our defenses were used against us. And so I'm basically saying all this to say the MCU has jumped so many different spaces, or so many different types of films, so many different genres. And the DCEU still has basically a superhero going against a villain. But where is the space opera? Where is the espionage? Where is the Captain America and times back with like Hitler and things like that? Where's the different time periods? Sure, they did it great now with Wonder Woman and showing how it's going back that way, but the MCU comes from so many different angles. that it's easy to find fans that appreciate each style of story and where it's coming from. So that's definitely something that they have over the DCEU. And I don't know, based upon the characters that they're going to be working on next, if they're able to jump into those different genres or styles or ways of telling different tales in different time periods. But that's something that definitely caught my attention from early on. And every single time they do a style change or whatever it is with Marvel, I've been on it right away.
Yeah, I am excited for always what Marvel's doing. But I'm also looking forward to whatever DC puts out. I mean, I think they have a hill to climb.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And they have shown that they can put things together that work. And it doesn't have to be a copy of what Marvel did. It doesn't have to be, let's throw some jokes in there because Chris Pratt made me fall out my chair laughing.
Right. Exactly.
They don't have to do that. And I'm glad
Yeah.
that they don't. I'm glad that there are different approaches to this whole comic book thing.
True.
I'm glad that in one of the Dark Knight movies, they actually got into this massive surveillance that Bruce Wayne, Batman was going to do. And they actually had a character who said, this is not okay.
Right.
And think about what you're doing here. And maybe it was related to current political events at the time, things like the Patriot Act. But again, going back to Big Brother, going back to maturer themes than just good guy, bad guy. Exactly.
That's a great point. There's so much more in the world than just good and evil. It can be on multiple levels. It can encompass several different values and beliefs that the everyday person experiences and deals with. And so when you go into those multi-layered styles of plot points and storylines, it's always going to be a better watch and a better appreciation for cinema than for you just to go back into like I joke and say, a light show at the end, where we're just standing across from each other, just shooting, hurling magic and special effects back and forth, seeing what hits and what doesn't.
Right, like Dragon Ball Z.
Exactly. So that's when you have people like I can't remember, was it Scorsese or was it someone else that was saying that comic book movies aren't worth the price of admission, and there's no reason that they should be winning awards and things like that. But it's now that you're starting to have people think about the moral that they stand on, and you're having issues with both. Now I can speak on both right now, where you have Superman at the end of Man of Steel kill someone for the first time, where it's like, okay, now what is the weight of this decision? And for me, it made sense. So I do appreciate DC being able to, when it's time, make those decisions. Something that was very polarizing at the time, but I definitely understood and I appreciated it. And I think if they had it to do again, they'd make the same decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I look forward to what they're all doing. I mean, it's more entertainment for me. So whatever they do, that's another chance to sit down, to enjoy myself. And even when I think about the movie later, there is something to think about.
Yes.
Beyond just, oh, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing.
Exactly.